Well, is there an alligator in your pants, or are you just happy to see me? Why am I bringing that up? We'll talk about that a little bit later. This is the Enough Already podcast. My name is Fingers Malloy, along with my lovely co-host, Tracy L. Connors. Hello, Tracy.
Hello, Fingers.
Well, I should probably address why we've been off for the last few weeks. I've had people hit me up privately saying, hey, where's the podcast? I've had a few issues family-wise. My father had surgery on his bladder, Tracy.
Oof.
Yeah. They removed 2 3-centimeter stones.
Did you get to keep them?
No, this is the thing that's really ridiculous. The doctor would not let him keep one of the stones. And he said, listen, I want to keep the stone. And they said, well, the lab has to see them. Now, why would the lab have to see both those stones?
Right.
You think to be able to keep one.
Do you think they're going to end up on that? What was that crappy gem network that you used to watch?
Oh, shit. What was the name of that?
And that knockoff jewel.
The Liquidation Channel.
That's where they're going
Yes.
to end up. You know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. I got to see if that's still on the air. Because they would have we would play games, the family. Me and the kids, we'd sit down and say, okay, they've got this Tamerex ring. You never heard of the stone before. They just made it up. Like, genuine Tamerex stone. Normally, this is $1,000 ring, but today on the Liquidation Channel, $9.95. And then the co-host, they have a female co-host, and she'd be like, oh, my God, this is unbelievable. And, you know, having orgasms at the Tamerex ring is now $9.99. So, yeah, that's where it's going to end up.
Well, you would imagine that, you know, is it bladder stones? Is that what they're called then?
Yeah, these were bladder stones, which aren't very common, but when you're 80 years old and your prostate's the size of Cuba, apparently there are times, and it's most of the time, where your bladder will not completely empty. And so these stones can form in your bladder. And these were so big that they could not go up. And, you know, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take a laser and break them up. But I mean, these were huge. I should share a picture of them because the doctor took a picture and sent it to my dad to show him how big they were.
But it's like the human version of a pearl.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know there's some sicko that would love to wear it as jewelry.
Oh, of course. And I'm one of those sickos. I'm not. But still.
It's a pinky ring for you.
Right? That's a 4-finger ring. Forget a pinky ring. The thing was freaking huge.
You have to put it up on Instagram.
Well, actually, I did.
Oh.
At one point after it happened, I said that my dad was the proud father of 2 bouncing baby bladder stones. So, and then we also had a death in the family, unfortunately. So that's why we were off as long as we have been. And plus, it's summer, Tracy.
I know. Congress goes on vacation, so can we.
Right. So we've missed quite a bit in the last few weeks. And again, because of the family health issues, you know, we've been inconsistent throughout the summer putting these podcasts out. So my apologies to those who care, and then I apologize to you too, Tracy, because I know you like to have these things out like clockwork. Monday at noon, and we've missed quite a few Mondays lately. So, having said that, well, we have missed a lot. We missed the second round of Democratic presidential debates. And as you know, I have a long-standing policy. I don't watch debates a year and a half outside of an election. That's just my thing.
When did you start watching them?
The last presidential debate.
Oh, okay. So it's just one-on-one?
Yeah, we one-on-one, and the last debate, which is really the most meaningless of all 3 debates. You know, sometimes they have 4, but most of the time it's 3, I think. Because at that point, it's just a bunch of Hail Marys, and you know what I mean? The first one is the best.
Okay.
That's science.
I don't know. The last time around, the second one was the best.
Was it?
That's the one where they weren't at podiums, so they were walking around. If you remember this, and that's the one where it was right after the Access Hollywood tape had come out,
right?
And more of the WikiLeaks came out, and Trump showed up with a bunch of Clinton accusers.
That's right,
and had them sitting there.
That's right.
And I think the last one was the one where he said that she would be in jail. I think they were all great, and I'm looking forward to next year with whoever he faces off against.
The President Trump, Elizabeth Warren debates. You're looking forward to that?
I still think it's going to be Kamala Harris.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I don't know. She owned a gun at one point, Tracy.
Kamala did.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. There was a piece a couple of months ago in the USA Today. It was an opinion piece, and it was some lunatic who wrote, well, it's known that Kamala Harris owned a gun, so that disqualifies her, in my mind, to get the Democratic nomination.
Okay. Of all the things that woman has done, that's the disqualifying one?
Yes, exactly.
You know, about her keeping innocent people in jail or threatening parents of truant children with incarceration, nothing like that. That's not upsetting, but she owned a gun.
Right.
I would imagine she can get out of that pretty easily. I mean, we live in a white supremacist country, so it makes sense that she would want to protect herself by exercising her Second Amendment right.
Well,
put that against, I use my phony heritage to get jobs and see who wins that battle.
You would think that would be an immediate disqualification.
You would think, but apparently it's not. And she put out some plan over the weekend, I guess, about what she's going to do for her faux people going forward.
I believe she's going to get the nomination. I can tell you who's not going to get the nomination, Joe Biden. But we could talk about this for 20 minutes, I'm sure. But Let's talk about the second round of debates. You watched them because you hate yourself, apparently.
Yeah.
That's my only guess. I don't know how anybody can watch them, but God bless you. I know you're into this stuff, so you don't hate. You love yourself, Tracy. I shouldn't say stuff like that, but I can't imagine sitting through both of those debates.
If you just look at them and pretend it's a Saturday Night Live skit that's actually funny, they're pretty easy to make it through, and it's astounding. And I remember I was texting you throughout being like, okay, this is how they're starting this. They started it with, what do we call that? The displaying of the colors or something, where they bring out members of the military and walk out with the flag. And the veteran, I assume, because they didn't, of course, CNN didn't tell you who anybody was.
Right.
They cut to him in the audience standing there holding a rifle. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, aren't they going to freak out? Is everybody in this auditorium just going to lose their damn minds?
Right.
How is this being allowed to happen? Nothing said about it. They come on stage. And then the first night, I think they had a church choir there singing the national anthem. And the second night, they had some woman who I distastefully referred to as RuPaul's mother when I texted you a picture of her. And I think you believed me for a moment.
Because that's believable.
Yes, it could very well have been. I mean, the resemblance was uncanny. So they have them all line up across the stage as somebody sings the national anthem. And, of course, it's notable who put their hand on their heart, who sings along. Most of them didn't sing along. I think Tim Ryan the first night didn't put his hand over his heart. But this is all theater so that we believe they actually give a damn about the military or being patriotic or any of that stuff.
And here's what's really funny, too, is, before they go out on stage, their staff huddles up and their advisors. They say, how do we handle the national anthem?
Right.
They got like 4 people involved in the decision. So how our candidate handles the national anthem. Should he or she put his hand over his heart, or should she sing along? How do we handle this? Should somebody take a knee? What do we do?
Oh, you're right. You're right. And that's how ridiculous this whole thing is. And that's why I can watch it and be entertained and not annoyed. And then of course, one of the things that came out of that is they introduced everybody. One by one, they have to come out on stage before this presentation of the colors thing. So Biden's out first, and then Kamala comes out, and he shakes her hand and says something like, "Go easy on me, kid." And this is a scandal. How dare he call her a kid? It's like, well, he's 175 years old.
That's right.
So he can call anybody except Bernie Sanders kid.
Right.
But this is extremely offensive, whatever. And then, so that was the first night's big face-off, was him and Kamala Harris. And then Tulsi Gabbard came in over the top and stole Kamala's thunder away from her. And it was exquisite. And she didn't know what to do.
And by the way, Tulsi Gabbard scored points, big points on Kamala Harris, because she was on MSNBC 1 or 2 days later, and the reporterette at MSNBC, the talking head there, was just trying to tear Tulsi apart. And it was like, whoa, oh man. Tulsi went after the wrong person in MSNBC's mind, collective hive mind, and they ripped her a new one, and Tulsi held her own. By the way, she's hot. Politics,
yeah.
Political hot. I mean, we know there are two different kinds of hot, right?
Right.
There's regular person hot. Well, there's three. There's regular person hot, there's celebrity hot, and then there's politician hot. She's politician hot. Mm-hmm. If you're the type who objectifies women, and I would never do that, Tracy. But
no, of course not. Of course not. So. No, but it's interesting because they're kind of boxed in with how they can smear her, because she's also a woman of color if we're going to play this game. So they can't call her a racist. They can't do any of that. So they have to revert to, she's a prop. She's now the new Russian puppet.
That's right.
Right? Because she dared to go and meet with Assad. So she's there for an Assad apologist. They all continue to push that idea that Assad gassed his own people, even though that's been debunked in certain circles. It just hasn't risen up to the mainstream media's attention. So she's had to defend herself from that. If you go on Twitter, it's, oh, here come the Russian bots to defend her. And it's just, it's so absurd. It's so absurd. And I have so much more respect from her. They're worried that she's not going to make the next round of debates because she has to go off and do her National Guard service.
Right.
For these 2 weeks. Well, the rest of the Congress is on vacation fighting about where they get to go in the world on our dime. Because it's very important for them to take these international meetings.
Well, did you see her in the airport playing the ukulele?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Ukulele? Of course.
Yeah, she was killing time, and a staffer, you could hear this ukulele music in the background, and the staffer had her phone, and she was recording the staff, and then she panned over, and there's Tulsi Gabbard looking hot, playing the ukulele in the airport. And she's just like one of us, Tracy.
That's not annoying or anything.
You telling me if you're running late for a flight, or if you're at an airport bar and your flight just got canceled, you don't want to hear someone playing the ukulele? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it depends on how good they are, I suppose. What was she playing? Do you remember?
Hot cross buns.
Oh, good.
No, I made that up. I don't know what she was playing. But look, she looked great. Her hair was flowing.
Oh,
you know,
love.
She looked fantastic. So there's that. Can we just agree at this point? You've mentioned you think it's going to be Kamala. I think it's going to be Elizabeth Warren. I think at this point we can bury Bernie Sanders. It's over, right?
I think so. I don't even think his appearance on Rogan's podcast can save him at this point.
And did you watch that?
I did. Not the entire thing, mind you. I think I watched 45 minutes of the hour. And
how did he perform?
I thought he was pretty weak.
Shocker.
Just looking body language wise. So he, the way that Rogan is set up, he's sitting directly across the table from whoever he's talking to. And so you'd think the person he's talking to should be making eye contact with him. And Bernie Sanders basically looked down at the table, I would say 85, 90% of the time.
Really?
Which I find incredibly disconcerting, number one. It's just weird. And then number two, it tells me that you're not believing what you're saying, or you're not totally bought into this. You're not assertive about it. You're just mumbling to your shoes. I mean, come on, Mr. Revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make. I mean, that's what you'll say. What Andrew Yang?
Mm-hmm.
I thought. Well, I don't. I'm not a fan of his ideas. At least he was selling them to Rogan in a way where you thought, okay, this guy believes in the crap that he's spewing, and he's confident about it. Mm-hmm. When you can't even look Joe Rogan in the eye while you're talking about what you believe in, I mean, don't you think that of all the people out there doing podcasts right now, or shows in general, especially with that kind of audience, even if you come across as disagreeable, or if you have views that Joe doesn't agree with, it's not like he isn't welcoming of opposing ideas. And Joe is probably going to agree with. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I was about to say, he's going to agree with everything Bernie Sanders would say, and that's not true. But you would think that he would sympathize with a lot of Bernie Sanders' ideas. He's not a got you
question kind of guy.
Right.
That's not his MO. And that got him in a little bit of trouble when he had Jack Dorsey on and let him kind of set the agenda and didn't push back hard. And so he stepped back and said, okay, I wasn't prepared for this interview. And so the second time that he had Dorsey on, he brought in Tim Pool to kind of run it. And that's sort of how I felt that he should have done with Bernie, and said he should have had somebody as his wingman in there that knows a bit more about politics and could actually engage with Bernie Sanders on these things. Like, Bernie started the interview by bitching that, in other countries, Joe, they give candidates like.
I love your Bernie impersonation.
Oh, thank you. They give candidates like an hour of airtime on their biggest networks so they can share their vision, just free. Oh, we should do that. And Rogan's like, oh, okay, well, you're on this podcast, dude. The last time I heard it was 6 million views on the YouTube channel itself.
Right.
It means there's probably 20 million listens. So you're going to tell me that if NBC, ABC, CBS, one of those three, or even PBS gave him an hour of airtime, that he would get less or more viewers than he will get on Rogan? But he seems to think that he should just be given television time. It's like, how old are you, dude? This is the best way to reach people, and it's all free.
Yeah.
There's probably hundreds of podcasters and hundreds of different YouTubers that would love to have him on. So, but it's always got to be like, oh, there's so much better somewhere else. They're just giving away free airtime. Dude, you are so clueless.
It's 20th century thinking.
It is. Well, it's like we should have state-run media. He thinks that campaigns should be publicly financed, which means that you and I have to pay for him to run. No,
right.
Thank you. No.
Did he bitch that he's not getting any radio time on the networks?
I don't think so.
No, he didn't. I want to do a fireside chat.
But I think he has his own TV show on Facebook. I think he's been doing Bernie TV for a year or two. It's just like, dude, can you not put this all together? But I want to jump back to the debate for just a second, because I started feeling really bad for John Delaney, who seems to be a fairly reasonable human being. Mm-hmm. And I just kept thinking, I think I even tweeted at him, I will give you $1,000. I will give $1,000 to your campaign if you will say on stage, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Because that's what it came down to. He was talking about this Medicare for all stuff. And, we can't be the party that tells people we're going to take something away from them, which is a pretty reasonable position to take, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people have private insurance, including union people who you guys, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, say you love them. So this is night 2 of the debate. Sorry, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead. When we had Bernie and Elizabeth facing off. And John Delaney's on the stage, and he's pushing back on this and saying, when they instituted Social Security, if we had said at that time, private pensions are now illegal, that program never would have happened.
Right.
People would have rebelled against it. So this is a bad way to go about this. And he's like, you could phase it in over time and just say, okay, in the next 5 years, it's going to be 55 and older into Medicare. And then we'll drop down to 45 and we'll slowly transition people. But if you want to have private health insurance, you can have it. And of course, this is a non-starter for them. And then he also pointed out that Medicare and Medicaid do not pay full freight.
Right.
You and I know that. They don't seem to know that. Because he said, look, I've talked to a bunch of different physicians in different hospitals across the country, and I asked them what would happen if everybody paid at the Medicare rates. And they said we would shut down. Oh, pfft. I mean, it's just laughed off. And it's just like, well, how do you get through to these people reality?
You don't.
Apparently not. But it was just stunning. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's one of the reasons why healthcare costs are so high is because the private sector, the private part of healthcare has to make up for the fact that Medicare and Medicaid don't pay a full rate. Because the government can pretty much dictate what they're going to pay, and you just have to suck it up, buttercup, and take it.
Exactly. There's no accounts payable at the government. I can't imagine that department exists.
You know, somebody brought this up the other day, and I'd like to credit them, but I can't remember. And it's not like this is something that hasn't been said before, but it's not said enough. You know, they keep talking on the left how greedy right-wingers are. Oh, you just care about your tax cuts and keeping more of your own money and stuff like that. Where so much of the Democrats' platform today is just pure envy. That's what it's based on. It's someone is doing better than you, and we need to take them down a notch. Mm-hmm. And that's not seen as greedy in any way. That, oh, hey, listen, sure, previous generations paid for their own college educations and paid off their own student loans, but you know what? College is really much more expensive now, so our student loans should be forgiven. And piss on everyone who paid their student loans off and people who never went to college. To hell with them. They should help pay for my student loan.
Yeah. Well, and they never want to ask the question, why is that so expensive? You never hear the greedy academics or
right.
the greedy colleges. If you look at the rate of prices across time and you look at the biggest spikes, it's education. It's everywhere that the government has gotten involved, you see that huge spike versus everything else. So I'm trying to think of other examples, and now I can't think of it, and I just saw a chart this week. But it's like, look at these things going off the charts. But yet, instead of saying we're going to get this under control by getting out of the student loan business, number one, and number two, allowing the student loans to be set, the rates of loans to be set based on your stupid major. So if you want to go off and major in something that's completely unproductive and you won't get a job, that's fine. And here's your loan, and the interest rate's going to be 25%. So this is how long it's going to take to pay it off, because we don't teach this stuff in school. God forbid you learn. This is how much debt you're about to incur. This is what you can expect your first years out of college to make. So if you want to go be a social worker, that's wonderful. But you're going to make $30,000 a year. So if you just took out $100,000 in loans and the rate is 25%, good luck paying that off ever.
Right.
But we can't have that realistic conversation because it might hurt somebody's feelings.
That's right. And the other thing, too, that has made college education costs explode is the administrative costs. And just to give you an example, and this is just one small part of the administrative cost when it comes to education, Campus Reform came out with a piece last week, and I highly recommend that you take a look at it. They said more than 40 university presidents make more than double what the U.S. president makes in a single year.
No, and if it's a state school, then they get a pension.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely insane. Continue.
Specifically, 179 university presidents make as much or more than the president of the United States.
And the
17
salary these days, isn't it about $500,000 a year?
Yeah, about $500,000 a year. 17 of those are public university presidents that make more than $1 million a year annually. $1 million to be a president of a university.
God.
You want to know where the money is going? Administrators at these universities and these colleges are just lining their pockets.
Well, and you look at how many there are. I mean, it's scary. It's almost like 2 to 1 for every student. So that's where it's all going. It's not just one president. They have tons and tons of different administrators. It's become these little bureaucracies. I'm just waiting. I don't know how long it continues like this. 10 years, maybe?
I mean, we've been hearing about the college education, the college bubble for a long time and how it's going to burst. And you're seeing people like Mike Rowe champion trade schools. And, the other thing that's going on with the whole sexual assault environment on college campuses, I would never send if I were a parent of a boy, I would be very, very cautious. I'd be scared to send.
Well, and you wouldn't want to send your daughters either, because what's their likelihood that they're going to be assaulted? 1 in 4, if you believe the statistics.
Do you buy those statistics?
No, not at all.
So, right. There's that too. But this can't continue. It can't.
No, and I think, there's a huge now with the internet and technology and all of that. And there's also, for the first time, I think, in history, you have a bunch of professors that are well known enough that if they developed their own curriculum and their own testing and said, hey, you can take my class. Say you could take a Jordan Peterson clinical psychology class, all online, take the tests. He says you pass. That goes on your resume. And since they're becoming so much more high profile, it's almost like having a brand name degree. Okay.
Yeah.
So how long does it take for us to transition over to that? Because it's just a waste of time. And think about what those professors could charge too. $5, $10, $100 to take their class. How many people would do it?
No, you're right. The whole thing with accreditation is such a big thing too. Well, will those schools be accredited?
Well, that's right. But which
part of the scam?
At a certain point, we get past that accreditation and just say, "Oh, okay, you've got an A in Peterson's class. You took Nasib Taleb's class on risk management, or whatever he's running at NYU. Jonathan Haidt's at NYU too, and it's a lot of these guys that are getting higher and higher profiles. You just took their class or their curriculum that they laid out. Like you could take a Camille Paglia class, art history. Not that I can imagine that many employers would be interested in that, but if you're going to go work at a design firm, maybe they would. So there are alternatives that I think are going to pop up, and you're going to see the major university system just crumble. Because do you need to spend 4 years in school, 2 of which they're forcing you to take electives that you need to graduate?
I think we talked about this previously. Yeah. I took Tennis 1 and Tennis 2. What the hell is that going to do for me in the job market?
Nothing. Well, I took women's studies. I had to. It was so boring. The only thing I remember about it is that I had a male professor, and his wife made him do the laundry in their household. And so he had jeans that were tinged pink because he didn't understand that if you're going to wash colors together, you have to wash them on cold, because otherwise they will run. Mm. So that's my memory of a semester worth of class.
Well, when I went back to school, my first 2 semesters, I took the Bible and Sexuality and Society were 2 classes. One was about the Bible, and the other one was watching hardcore porn for 15 weeks.
Did you get an A?
Oh, come on. Of course.
That sounds like one of those classes where you just get to grade yourself.
Oh, so many jokes there. But no, it all has to crumble at some point when you've got people getting anthropology degrees, spending $80,000 a year, and then once you graduate, looking around the job landscape and saying, what am I going to do with this degree? And wow, look at my $700 a month student loan payment that I have to make.
Right. Okay, I have to go back to school because the only thing I can do with this is become a professor.
Right.
So that means at least a master's, if not a doctorate. So,
and now you got $140,000 in student loans. So you got a house payment that you have to pay off in 10 years.
Yep. And that's why you're going to vote for Bernie Sanders.
Right. Okay, so the other big story, I mean, there have been several big stories. The whole Jeffrey Epstein suicide. Okay, so are you a conspiracy theorist? Do you think that Bill and you call her Hildo got their people involved and there was a hit? Tracy, what's your theory on Jeffrey Epstein's suicide?
My theory was I wanted to have a theory that I hadn't heard anybody else come up with. Because this is just like, let's get as ultimately ridiculous as possible with this story. Come on. I mean, when this happened, I was just like, holy crap, this is some brazen shit. Like, whatever went down here, if you just want to believe that it's complete incompetence, which is totally believable when we're talking about dealing with a government and a government institution, which is what a prison is. Right. It's absolutely believable. And it's funny to me because I watch Orange is the New Black. So this was actually partially taken right from a storyline in that show. One of the prisoners tried to kill herself the way that they're saying he killed himself. Although she stopped herself, which I think would be the natural kind of like your body goes into survival mode and you have to really, really want it badly to overcome that desire to just put your feet down on the ground. Because we're not talking about like a super high bunk bed, I wouldn't think. Here. So it is possible, but I thought what would be the most outrageous thing that I could possibly posit is what happened. So this is what I came up with. I don't think Jeffrey Epstein was ever in jail. I think that did you see him go to jail?
Okay.
Why not? Body doubles, we know this. Didn't Saddam have that?
So you're saying maybe Epstein got some of Saddam's people involved? The plastic, flew some Iraqi plastic surgeons.
Well, I mean, did anybody actually see him get taken into jail? I don't know. I didn't look this up. I'm just making stuff up because why not just go as crazy as possible with this? So how do we even know that anybody was in that jail cell as Epstein? And then if there was somebody there, was it actually him? I mean, I assume they fingerprinted him and did the mugshot stuff, but did they DNA test him? I don't think they do that. Did they check dental records? I don't know. And I mean, sure, he was meeting with attorneys for 12 hours a day, but they would totally be in on it.
So maybe you got a Jack Ruby type because that stepped up to the plate. Thought maybe he's got some sort of terminal cancer, and you give him plastic surgery,
right?
Throw
him
into jail.
Him, a couple $100 million.
Yeah,
they're saying his net worth. They think $500 million. Of course, no one knows. Right. So if it's, hey, go to jail on my behalf, then kill yourself a couple weeks later, and we'll give your family $100 million. I'm sure there's somebody that would take that deal.
We talk about girl brain all the time on the show.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's examine guy brain for a second.
Okay.
I just don't understand if you are worth $500 million, why you have to behave this way. I would think if you have $500 million, getting laid the traditional way shouldn't be a problem for you.
Right. But
I mean, you got to be a sick
that's
bastard.
always the argument that I hear. It's like, You just want to keep pushing that edge. You want that rush. You need that adrenaline.
Oh, I'm really getting bored banging supermodels all the time. Must be awful. Oh, dear God, there must be more out there. Get the fuck out of here. What is wrong? I just got...
Well, look at all the other people that were involved in this.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that they went to that island and they just blind eyes everywhere, didn't see a thing, didn't participate, and then decided to keep their mouths shut about it. You know, what hero they would have been? Bill Clinton could have totally redeemed himself if he had come back from that island and said, you know what? Go right to the FBI. Guess what, guys? That guy's running a child sex trafficking ring, and I'm reporting him.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, I need to go back and look, but I'm almost positive that the FBI raided the island after the suicide.
Yeah. After.
I got nothing.
No, it's like everything's gone. Everything would have been cleared out of there. This whole thing is just so bizarre. And I don't think nobody seems to be buying this. I don't think anybody will ever be satisfied unless we had video of it happening. And even now, if you had video with deep fakes, they'd be seeing, I'm serious. You've seen the newest ones, right? With Bill Hader, where he's on one of the late night shows and he's doing impressions and his face morphs right into like Tom Cruise or whoever he's doing. And you can't tell that it's not that person. I mean, it's creepy. So I'm thinking, hey, even if they had a video, nobody would believe the damn video anymore.
Well, no, I saw a piece a couple of weeks ago where revenge porn is becoming a big deal. It's been a big deal for a while, but these are revenge porn videos of people who were never in the video.
Of course.
They were just able to with a computer software put someone's face on a woman's or man's body in a porn and say, oh, that's Julie. Look at Julie. And Julie was never a part of that film. If you could do that, certainly you could come up with some sort of fake suicide video.
Nobody's ever going to be satisfied with this. I mean, his own attorneys are saying now that they want an independent autopsy. They don't believe it. They don't believe the medical examiner.
Wow. You want my theory?
Yes, please.
Government incompetence.
Okay. I honestly think that makes the most sense, but it's way more fun to...
I know. It's way more fun. If you want to... And I don't know... If you want to speculate as far as conspiracy theories go, the only plausible one to me is this. And I don't know Jeffrey Epstein's family history. I don't know if he's got children. I don't know if his parents are still alive. But if it's known that he does have loved ones, it wouldn't surprise me at all if word got back to good old Jeffrey that, hey, maybe you should off yourself or someone in your family could have an unfortunate accident. That's about... If you want me to swallow a conspiracy theory, I could totally see that. Where it was just like, hey, maybe you should go away permanently, and if you don't, something could happen to your family.
Yeah, I don't think he has children, and I don't know. I mean, that behavior almost strikes me. His behavior as sociopathic. So if that's the case, then he doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself. I
suppose.
But my whole thing is there's been a lot of discussion that maybe he was working with the deep state. And not only ours, but other countries and stuff like that. But if that's true, why would they even bother arresting him and bringing him in?
Right.
They just take him out. That's where I think, the whole thing, oh, he was murdered in there. Why would they bother? Why are they going to arrest him, throw him in a cell, and then off him? They could have just offed him, and then we wouldn't have had all of this. Remember, he went to sleepaway jail, 10 years ago? And then they let him out and he's running around free. Nobody took him out in all that time.
Yeah, that was for some sort of sexual assault, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Well, it's all to do with this. Slap on the wrist and he got to go to sleepover jail. That's what it is. He got to leave every day.
Jail camp?
Yeah, basically. It's like, oh, you come in, you put on the hospital scrub looking outfit, and you sleep here. I mean, it's not comfortable, but you get to leave every day.
Right.
It's like, oh, wow, how awful.
And I'm sure it wasn't like he shared a cell with double murderer, crack addict. It was probably this nice little hotel-like room with cable. And he had a, oh my gosh, there were, it was a brick wall around me, and we only had basic cable in the room. It was terrible. These conditions were awful.
Yeah, and my TV was only 720p. Believe this. God.
I just don't get it, man. $500 million, you would think would be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be, I'll be banging the latest, greatest supermodel for a while, and then I'll get tired of her, and then I'll find another supermodel who's a year younger than her, and I'll start banging her. I'm worth $500 million. Why you have to, it just shows just how sick this person was, that he that wasn't good enough. Wow.
Right. But that's where you think he made the $500 million, was doing this and then extorting money out of everybody else he had participating in it.
Yeah.
Because they say he was a hedge fund guy, but there's no record. There's no SEC records of him executing trades ever. And all that stuff has to be public. So it's quite the mystery, but I don't see how anybody benefits from him getting offed, is the thing. It's not going to stop the story, and if anything, it makes people more interested. So maybe that was him in that cell, and he took himself out to just be like, screw you guys. Because now they just can have at it with his stuff. They don't have to go through his lawyers to get access to it.
Well, I mean, if there was pressure on him to squeal and name names and bury powerful people, and maybe he said to himself, listen, they're tightening the screws, and I'm used to being able to get on a private jet and fly wherever I want to fly, and now I'm in a jail cell, and the government can screw with me in this jail cell and put me with people who wouldn't have any problem making me their bitch. Maybe it's time for me to call it a life, and he offed himself. Who knows? Who knows what was going on? I just always lean towards government incompetence.
Yeah.
Before any kind of weird conspiracy theory between Joe Scarborough said it was looked very Russian.
Yes, of course. And also, I mean, it's like, it also looks like Whitey Bulger. How long did he last in jail?
Yeah.
And we're always told, pedophiles, they get offed by other prisoners.
Oh, they're coming to get you.
I know. Look out.
Well, listen, let's switch gears and talk about Portland.
All right.
So, another protest. Now, this was the Proud Boys.
Yep.
Who, again, I feel like we've done this before on the show, but I feel like we need to keep doing this and talk about the origins of the Proud Boys. The origin of the Proud Boys, because it's kind of taken on a life of its own in the media today, and they make it sound like Gavin McGinnis on his show started this little thing as a joke, and now they've made Gavin out to be some sort of white supremacist based on what's happened with the Proud Boys. You're much more I like Gavin a lot. I think he's highly talented. I enjoyed his show on the Cumia Network, and I understand. I haven't watched his. He's got a new show, right?
He's got a new channel, and I actually subscribed to it while we were on hiatus. freespeech.tv, and it's fantastic. So he's doing a daily show Monday through Thursday, and he's also doing what do they call it? Every fortnight, because it's him and Milo. So we want to go every 2 weeks. They do a Friday night show with him and Milo. And then he's done a series that he calls Free Speech, where he gets a right-winger and a lefty and sits them down together and tries to have a conversation about where they agree. So far, He's had Roger Stone sit down with Mark Lamont Hill, which was a fairly interesting discussion. They talked a lot about prison reform and stuff like this. And meanwhile, Roger's waiting to find out if he's going to jail.
Right.
So they agreed on a lot of stuff. Cornel West and Milo, which was also fascinating. And you'd be shocked at how well-read Milo is. Like he's always kind of portrayed as this buffoonish, clown. And he played into that a lot, but he's also incredibly bright, and Cornel West is as well. So they had a really interesting conversation. And then Michelle Malkin and Michael Eric Dyson.
Okay.
Yeah. They agreed on a lot. I mean, criminal justice reform, she's been doing a lot of work on that. I know she's got a doc about it's one case that she's been following with a police officer, Daniel Hortzclaw or something like this, where she's fairly convinced that he got railroaded. And so they had a decent discussion about that. And then, of course, it devolves later when we talk about policing and, the inherent white supremacy and policing and stuff like that. So that kind of, they agreed for the first 45 minutes, and then it got a little bit ugly. And then the most recent one was Ann Coulter, and I don't remember her first name, but she's Harry Belafonte's daughter.
Oh, okay.
And so that was pretty congenial, and they agreed on quite a bit. So he's just having trouble getting more lefties to agree to come on. So they're even offering to pay them. So he tried to get Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks, and they offered her $5,000, I think, and she won't do it because going on Gavin's show would then be, I don't remember how they put it. It's either condoning, white supremacy or some such nonsense. And so the same thing was also said by David Pakman, I guess, and Sam Cedar. They won't go on. But so they put out these videos about how hateful Gavin is. And then he said, I think when those videos came out, it drove his subscriptions. Like, 1,000 people signed up for my show. So they just, thank you. They just made me $100,000.
Right.
But yeah, so to get back to the Proud Boys, that whole thing came about on Gavin's show when he was on Kumia's network. And the name Proud Boys comes from the Aladdin musical. I think Gavin had gone to his kid's school to see some talent show or something, and this kid sang this song, Proud of Your Boy. So that became the name of the gang, because he's like, real tough gangs always have really kind of weak names. So we'll be the Proud Boys. And it was a joke, really. He's a member of the Knights of Columbus, which is, I believe, it's a Catholic men's group, right? And he liked those guys. He's like, there aren't any fraternal orders anymore, really. They've kind of banned men's clubs. So I want to have a group for men to support each other. And there are a lot of younger men that don't have father figures. So it's nice to have older men that they can talk to and all this stuff. And there's a comedian named Dante Nero who happens to be a black gentleman, that he was the Pope of the Proud Boys. So he was involved from the very beginning. And I think he ended up stepping away because he started believing the nonsense the media was saying in the Southern Poverty Law Center. So if you see like these actual groups of guys, Gavin came up with, we're going to wear this outfit. It's a Fred Perry shirt that's black, and then it's got a collar that has gold stripes on it. That's going to be our little uniform outfit. And then he's even said recently there's another group of Proud Boys that calls themselves like the Margarita Boys, and they look like they're going to a Jimmy Buffett concert all the time. I mean, it's really silly. And
from what I remember, Tracy, it was just, hey, this is Gavin likes to have a good time. Mm-hmm. This was just an excuse for a bunch of guys to meet at a local bar in New York City and have some drinks.
Yep.
That's all it was.
Sometimes they had events where women could come. There was a little spinoff called the Proud Boys Girls that existed for a while. And that was a lot of their wives. And like some of these guys, there are some of them, I think they're on trial right now in New York, because Gavin was giving a speech at the Metropolitan Republicans Club in New York. And it had been announced. So Antifa was all for a week, like harassing the location, doing all this kind of stuff, putting up posters. Oh my God, they're going to host this white supremacist. And if you guys don't know, Gavin is married to an American Indian. Like he's like, my kids get checks. Like that's how, you know, he's like, I'm a really bad white supremacist being a race mixer and all, but God forbid we let facts get in the way of this narrative that everybody wants to believe. So what happened, he gives this talk, the Antifa's outside agitating and all this stuff. And then a group, they kind of disperse. And I think there was a group of the Proud Boys walking to get to the subway or something like this. And they get bum rushed by Antifa. Mm-hmm. And now there's video of this, but it's selectively edited, of course. Right. It shows the Proud Boys. And they did beat the shit out of this guy when they could have just stopped. But like Antifa started it, the Proud Boys finished it, which was kind of always Gavin's thing. And they'll show videos of him being like, you know, punch people. It's time to get violent. But what they don't tell you is he's always prefacing it by saying it's in self-defense. Like if they're going to come after us, we're going to fight back. We're not going to take it. And so this case is kind of like this. And the Antifa guys didn't even want to press charges. So this is politically motivated. De Blasio is just like, we got to stop these guys. You've got, you know, Governor Cuomo. We've got to stop these guys. So they're facing serious jail time, 3 of them. And one of them happens to be black. And his wife is the one that heard about the Proud Boys, and she wanted her husband to go join it. So it's just like when you look at the reality of the situation, it's totally different than how it's presented, of course.
Of course.
TV. So there's a group of them in Portland, and they've had several face-offs against Antifa. And the way that it started, as far as I know, is there's a group there called Patriot Prayer, and they were holding events in downtown Portland, and Antifa would come out because, oh, God forbid, we have a right-leaning group that wants to exercise their free speech in downtown Portland. And so the Proud Boys started showing up to act as security for these guys. And they were... Now,
do we know anything about Patriot Prayer? Because the way they're being portrayed in the media is they're this alt-right organization that, has ties to white supremacists. And you always have to take that with a grain of salt.
Of course. I know nothing about them. No.
Okay.
But if that's what the media is saying, then it's probably not true. That would just be my guess.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know about you. Have you ever met a white supremacist in your life?
No. Okay. That's the thing I have said over and over again, repeatedly, that this notion that there's this huge white supremacist movement in the United States, that's completely bogus. I'm not saying that there aren't white supremacists in America. That would be a ridiculous statement. But you listen to some Democratic candidates running for president and you listen to the mainstream media, you would think that the Republican Party is being overrun by white supremacists. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Oh.
They're out there, but they're taking over the Republican Party. You're out of your freaking mind. And any decent conservative, if they were around that sort of person, they would denounce them and get the fuck away from them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, didn't Richard Spencer get his ass tossed out of CPAC last year?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I was around. He actually had the audacity to, a couple of years ago, I think, show up at a hotel bar at CPAC, and there were at least 5 well-known, and I'm not going to mention their names because there's no sense in doing that, well-known conservative media personalities that wanted to walk up to him and punch him in the face.
Well, I hear that's allowed.
As long as we're not paying for their health care.
No, but that's the thing that I don't understand. I'm like, you guys want free health care for everybody and punch a Nazi. So you want to make sure that after you punch them, they get good medical care.
Yeah.
That we're all paying for. You want to pay for Nazis to get their faces fixed after you punch them in.
Right. You deliver the crowbar of tolerance to their face and then throw a moderate milkshake
right
on top of their heads that's cover them in concrete, and then you want to pay for their health care.
Yes, because you're compassionate. These are the things that they don't ever think that stuff through.
Right.
Clearly.
So there was a huge demonstration, and I did see what's the name of that reporter who was attacked by
Andy No.
Andy No again had some really good footage of the violence in Portland that the mayor of Portland seems to while he hasn't come out publicly and said, hey, I'm sure okay with what's going on. Privately, he doesn't seem to have a problem with it, or at the very least, his actions show that he doesn't seem to have a problem with it, because the police seem to stand down a lot of times when violence starts happening.
Well, there were 13 arrests at yesterday's.
That's an improvement.
And I believe they were all Antifa. So,
well, there was footage of allegedly the Proud Boys getting into a bus and Antifa attacking the bus, and someone throwing a hammer, taking a hammer to the bus.
Park. This is where the initial rally was to be held by the Proud Boys who organized it. They are a far right group. You can see there's not a lot of folks still left here. The left was on this side for the most part. The right ended up moving onto the other side, and the two did not really come together, and that was by design. Police, lots of officers out here trying to keep that interaction from happening, and so far so good. And we know that the Proud Boys, we had an interview and talked to them, and we know that they have now left. I want to let you listen to what one of the Proud Boys told us as we asked them why they keep coming back to Portland. This particular person is from Florida and says he's going to keep coming back, and listen to why. In a time when the government here and the people here that live here are extremely concerned about what's going on, to have the president just pick one group when the right has also been arrested, and not to mention it.
Weekend, would you be tweeting right now? Right now, you're not covering white supremacy, are you? You're covering this event, right? So when El Paso shooting happens, he tweeted about El Paso. Today, the event is Antifa. So
is it Antifa though? That you guys were the ones that organized this event. So how is this Antifa?
Did anything go wrong with this event today?
Nothing went wrong with Antifa either. Nothing went wrong with you guys. It has so far been peaceful. Is that what you plan on doing coming here? I guess the question is why come here?
As long as Ted Wheeler keeps pandering to Antifa and not calling them out by name, we're going to keep coming out here. We're going to keep wasting his resources. He's going to call all the agencies that he's called. He's going to call the National Guard, the FBI, all of those people. And we're going to keep coming out here until Ted Wheeler does something.
Well, there you go.
So you heard there from one of the Proud Boys who says they're going to keep coming out here, even if it means, to waste resources, which does not make the people who live here in Portland and pay taxes happy to hear. Neither.
Oh, God.
Oh, now you're concerned about taxpayer money. Wow.
Cares about that. Yeah, sure. Right. What a liar.
Well, that's an interesting take from the Proud Boy, who, by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you're not watching it on YouTube or BitChute, that Proud Boy that she was interviewing was black.
I think so, although I'm confused because it looked like, and I can't see his name now anymore, but it looked like he had a Latinx name.
Oh, so maybe he wasn't of color. Can we say he was of color?
He was a POC for sure.
Okay.
But I do think it's interesting because the CNN on that Chiron says far left and far right extremist groups face off in Portland.
That's a first.
Calling Antifa far left. And it wasn't peaceful. There was quite a few altercations, at least that I saw.
Well, Andy No, at one point during his coverage, I believe, if you go back and look on Twitter, said that it appeared as though police were ordered to stand down at one point, and that's when you saw the violence. There was a couple who, one guy had looked like American flag pants on. It was a man and a woman, and they were being chased down by Antifa. The buses, like I mentioned earlier, were attacked. This was kind of funny. So someone had a hammer, and they were hitting the bus with the hammer, and then eventually threw the hammer in the bus. There was a great debate on Twitter as to who brought the hammer, because it looks like at one point there's a photo of someone in the bus with a hammer. And it's like, oh, who brought the hammer? Who brought the hammer? What seemed to be a debate. It's like, well, okay, are you trying to say that if someone from the Proud Boys brought a hammer with him, you've had many instances documented on video of Antifa running around with the crowbars of tolerance, hitting people over the head with the freaking crowbar. So we're just going to pretend that no one in Antifa brings weapons with them, and you're going to focus. If there was this much focus on every crowbar of tolerance that the Antifa people had over the past couple of years versus this one hammer that maybe someone from the Proud Boys brought.
There we go. Here's the bus fight, or at least part of it.
Oh, he's got a hammer!
No hammers.
Sorry, my language. He threw a hammer. Bring your fucking knife outside. Fuck you! Oh, your fucking knife out, coward! Oh, let's go, bitch! Patient, all up there! All up there!
So they're spraying, it looks like mace into the bus while they're punching the sides, kicking the sides, and hitting them with the hammer. Seems peaceful. I love that guy, one of the Antifa running after the bus and just eats shit.
Yeah.
There we go. No, that wasn't a crowbar of tolerance.
Fuck guts.
Yeah. You got mace, dude. What a disaster. That town is just such an insane place.
And it's such a shame, too, because I've talked to people. I mean, you've spent time in Portland. You lived in Portland for a
year.
time. It's, I'm told at one point it was a lovely city.
It is. But it's a hotbed for this kind of idiocy.
So that's your Antifa update. Well, we're already an hour in, Tracy. We had stories that we were planning on talking about, but, we had to do a recap of everything that we missed. Do you want to tackle anything, or should we just call it a day?
I think we should just call it a day.
You can catch the Enough Already podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, of course. Leave us a review on iTunes. That would help us out a lot. Tune in. What am I missing, Tracy?
Oh, good Lord. Google Play. Anywhere fine podcasts can be found, you will find us.
That's where you'll find us. And, of course, you can catch us on our video portion of this podcast, which you can see on YouTube and BitChute. Final thoughts, Tracy?
Well, today, Fingers, is the anniversary of the 19th Amendment being signed into law.
And everything has gone to shit ever since.
Exactly.
Are we going to, as part of our scam pack project that we keep talking about, that we never do, are we going to try to launch a Repeal the 19th Amendment movement through scam pack?
I think we should. I think that could be put in such a way that it would be part and parcel to recruiting Ann Coulter to run. Because as far as I know, aside from myself, she's the only other woman that's openly called for the repeal of the 19th Amendment.
Yeah.
So that could be her one platform position, and we could just scam pack her into running.
Oh, there you go. I'm crafting the fundraising email right now. We need to draft Ann Coulter to run for president.
So that we can repeal the 19th Amendment. And you wonder how many people are going to have to Google that.
Send us $5.
No, 19.
Oh, of course.
Got to play this, right?
Oh.
Or $1.90, or we can,
Yeah, there are things. There are ways we can. Well, we could have tiers. $1.90, $19, or $190.
See, when you said tears, I thought you meant crying.
Oh.
Which is why we shouldn't have let the 19th Amendment pass in the first place.
Well, there you have it. She is Tracy L. Connors. Follow her on Twitter at Tracy L. Connors. Follow me on Twitter at Fingers Malloy. And catch everything Enough Already at our website, enoughlalready.us. And we're going to do our best to be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, with an all-new Enough Already.